The office buzzed with the usual energy of a typical day, desks filled with busy workers, fingers tapping rapidly on keyboards, the occasional ringing of phones, and quiet murmurs of collaboration. Everything seemed normal except for one thing: one was missing. To most, it was just an absence, perhaps a sick day or personal leave, but to three people in that building, one's absence was heavy and haunting. They knew the truth behind her silence. Inside the CEO's private office, Jungkook sat in his leather chair, staring silently at the horizon through the large glass window. His posture was relaxed, almost too calm. His face carried a rare lightness, an unfamiliar softness in his expression. Beside him, Jimin and V tensely on the couch. Both of them exchanged confused glances. This Jungkook was not the same man they had watched erupt in rage only days ago. Something had shifted. V narrowed his eyes. V, you are in an oddly good mood today. Should we be worried? Jungkook smiled faintly without turning around. Jungkook, can't a man just be in a good mood? That was it, no explanation, just the sound of his voice drifting like smoke into the silence of the room. Suddenly Jungkook's phone lit up. He picked it up without a word, his face unreadable. He stared at the screen for a few moments before answering. Jungkook, yes. He said simply, make sure everything is ready within 2 days. It has to happen by then. The person, on the other hand, ain't responded, but whatever they said was too quiet to be heard. Jungkook ended the call and placed the phone down slowly. Jimmy leaned forward, brows furrowed. Jimin, is something happening soon? Jungkook's eyes sparkled with something. Was it mischief, determination, revenge? Jungkook, you will know when the time comes. That was all he said, nothing more. Jimin and V knew better than to press further. Whatever Jungkook was planning, it was already in motion, and it was only a matter of time. Wine sat silently before the mirror, unmoving, her gaze hollow and distant. A wedding. For most girls, it is the beginning of a dream, the fulfillment of long-held fantasies wrapped in flowers, music, and soft promises. But for Wine, this day felt like a funeral for her freedom. She didn't speak, she didn't blink, she simply stared at her reflection as if trying to find answer in the girl she hardly recognized anymore. Moments later, a group of beauticians entered, their arms filled with wedding dresses in different styles. They paused as they observed her expressionless face, sensing the heavy silence in the room. Girl, ma'am, would you prefer a revealing style or something more modest? One of them asked politely. Wine didn't reply, she didn't nod. Her silence echoed louder than any word ever could. It wasn't a preference anymore. This wasn't her choice. This wasn't her day. Choosing a dress felt like luxury she hadn't earned. The beauticians exchanged uncertain glances, mistaking her silence for homesickness. Perhaps she was leaving her family, they thought. Perhaps that's why her heart seemed so heavy. They dressed her in several gowns until one fit her like it had been made for her alone. She looked stunning, but still she didn't smile. She let them apply the makeup, fix her hair, paint her lips, all without protest or response. She simply sat, a porcelain doll dressed for display. The room fell into a eerie stillness until the door cracked open again. It was her mother, weak but determined. Her mother wheeled herself forward. The moment her eyes fell upon Wyan, her tears broke free. She reached for her daughter's face, her trembling hand brushing gently across her cheekbones and lips. Once, Mom, I'm sorry, her mother whispered, her voice shaking. I'm so sorry I could not do anything. If your father were still alive, maybe none of this would be happening. One took her mother's hand gently, shook her head slowly, and signaled for her not to cry. But even to her mother, one felt like a stranger today. She had always been quiet, always cried her struggle alone. Being mute made her learn silence early, and even now, in the midst of one of life's most important moments, she was locked away inside herself. No tears, no anger, no begging, just a quiet surrender, a quiet strength. She had fought for education, endured cruelty, survived loneliness. She had tried to build a life on her terms, but today the fragile life was being rewritten. Suddenly the door opened again. Several bodyguards stepped in with authority in their stride. Guard, it's time. The ceremony is starting. One of them announced. One's mother turned sharply. One's mom. This wedding is wrong. Tell your boss. It should not happen. This isn't marriage, it's cruelty. One of the guards signed, expressionless. Guard, ma'am, we are just following orders. If we don't escort the bride now, we will be one laying dead next. One's mother clutched her daughter's hand tighter, desperate. One's mom, please listen to a mother's plea. If you have any heart left. The guard looked away. Guard, we're sorry, but this can't be stopped. You know that. Tears poured freely down her mother's cheeks now. Wine said nothing. She watched everything in silence, like a prisoner awaiting her fate. After a few long sittings, her mother let go of her hand. Without resistance, without a word, Wine stood. She walked toward the guards as instructed. One of them gently pushed her mother's wheelchair forward as they all made their way to the grand wedding hall, a celebration for all, except the bride and her mother. Wine walked forward slowly, her steps steady but her heart pounding in her chest. The grand doors of the wedding altar had swung open. Blinding lights surrounded her, flashing from all directions, dazzling, disorienting. She squinted but didn't stop. She could not. All around her were unfamiliar faces, but they weren't ordinary people. No smile, no joy. The air was thick with tension. The room was filled with people linked to the underworld, mafias, assassins, dealers. Everyone had a shadow behind their name. Wine reached the altar and stood in place, keeping her gaze lowered, too afraid to look around. Her heart thudded, so hard like echoed in her ears. Then the priest began the ceremony. Priest, Jeon Jungkook, do you take Wine Jihaewang to be your lawfully wedded wife, to be with her in joy and in sorrow, in hell and in pain, for as long as you both shall live? Jungkook's voice came calm and firm. Jungkook, I do. The moment she heard the voice, Wine froze. That voice, she knew it. It wasn't a stranger. It was him, her voice. Her eyes jerked upward, wide in shock. It can't be. But it was. Jungkook stood across from her, dressed like a groom, calm and terrifying all at once. But how? How was he the groom? Before she could fully process the shock, she looked around and her breath caught. Blood, bodies. Several men were lying dead and unconscious around the altar. The remaining guests were injured, some barely standing, some bleeding silently. Even the priest was trembling as he performed the rituals. It wasn't a wedding, it was massacre. Wine's whole body began to shake, her vision blurred, her stomach churning. She turned, ready to run, panic curling up her throat, but Jungkook grabbed her hand tightly. Jungkook, where are you going? He said, his voice slow and sharp. You can't leave without getting married. She looked at him with sheer terror in her eyes. She wanted to scream, cry, break free, but her voice had never served her, and now neither did her strength. She looked around desperately, searching for her mother, but there was no sign of her. Panic gave way to despair. Tears welled in her eyes, her lips trembled. She began to sob silently, her shoulders trembling. Her mother, where was she? Jungkook's face twisted in confusion. Jungkook, what are you looking for? You can't run away. The sooner you accept it, the better. Say yes. The priest hesitated, but at Jungkook's sharp glare, he continued. Priest: Wyan J. Hwang, do you take Jeon Jungkook to be your lawfully wedded husband, to stand by him in good times and bad, in lights and darkness, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? Wyan tried once more to resist, to break free, but she knew there was no way out. Her body trembled as she slowly raised her hand and made a faint sign. Wyan, I do. The priest nodded. Priest, you may exchange your rings. Jungkook took the ring and slid it onto her shaking finger. She tried to pull away, but he held her hand tightly. The priest looked at them and said, Priest, you may now kiss. Wyan froze. She didn't move. Her eyes were wide. Her heart thundered. She shut her eyes tightly in fear, but instead of lips she felt a soft warmth on her forehead. Jungkook kissed her gently, gently like a mark, a seal. Jin, let's go. Jin's voice came from the side. We don't have much time. Jungkook gave a slight nod. Jungkook, everything is ready. Jin nodded. Jin, yes, everything. Jimin and Fee entered through the back quietly. Jungkook turned to Wyan. Jungkook, come. Wyan hesitated, still searching the room with her eyes. Her mother. Where was her mother? Her heart screamed even as her lips stayed silent. Jungkook took her hand and began walking. She followed, not because she wanted to, but because there was no other path left. She kept turning back again and again, her eyes desperate to catch a glimpse, a sign, a shadow. But there was nothing. They stepped into the car and the door shut behind her. The wedding was over, but the real story had just begun. They jumped into the car. Jungkook, drive, he ordered sharply. The driver didn't hesitate. The tires reached as the car bolted down the road, slicing through the dark. Inside, it wasn't Jungkook and Wyan anymore. Jimin, V and Jin were with them, each of them deadly silent and focused. The car sped up, wavering through narrow streets, but soon headlights appeared all around them. V looked back, his voice urgent. V, we are being followed, multiple cars. Jungkook stepped on it. He girled, and everyone, arm yourself. In a second, guns were drawn. Their expressions were cold and ruthless. Wyan flinched at the sound of bullets being loaded. Her hand trembled in her lap. Suddenly, gunshots rang out, loud and close. Bang, bang. Wyan flinched and ducked, her heart pounding, her breath swallow. She had never been this close to death, never heard bullets flying past her like whispers of doom. A car swerved violently in front of them, blocking their path. The driver slammed the brakes, tires screamed, and their bodies jerked forward from the sudden stop. They were trapped. Jungkook, Jimin and V jumped out immediately, weapons ready. Jungkook, Jin, stay in the car with Wyan, he ordered without looking back. From the car ahead, a man stepped out. Mr. Jeon, wrapped in bandages, limping slightly, but his eyes were burning with venomous rays. Mr. Jeon, well, Jeon sneered. Finally a grand reunion, I must say. The wedding was well played, but you are not going anywhere now. Jungkook's eyes darkened. Jungkook, move. Mr. Jeon laughed, bitter and cold. Mr. Jeon, the marriage may be complete, but freedom, that's not part of the deal. He raised his hand toward his guards. Mr. Jeon, get the girl out. His men began moving toward the car. Wyan shrunk into her seat, her body trembling uncontrollably. Jin gripped his gun tighter, watching the side mirror like a hawk. Then the rumble of engines. Multiple cars appeared from the opposite side, tires spinning against the gravel. The reinforcement had arrived. Jungkook's man. Gunfire exploded like a war zone. Screams, crashes, bullets. Jimin and V ducked behind the doors and fired back. It was chaos. Wyan had her hand over her ears, tears in her eyes, her breath hitched. With every shot fired, her world had turned into a battlefield. In the midst of the fight, Mr. Jun began moving toward their car, dragging his wounded body with grim determination. Jungkook saw him. "Jungkook, no!" he shouted. "Jin!" The moment Jin heard his name, he pulled down the window. Without a pause, he aimed and fired. Bang! The bullet hit Mr. Jeon in the shoulder. He cried out and collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain. His guards rushed to his side. Jungkook and his men didn't wait. They jumped back into the car. One still curled in her seat, frozen in fear. "Jungkook, drive now!" he barked. The car launched forward again, this time faster, angrier. They left smoke, blood, and fire in their trail. Eventually, the city faded behind them, and the car pulled into the shadow of dense forest. The noise dimmed, replaced by rustling leaves and the howling wind. Inside the car, one sat wordless, her hands clasped tightly on her lap, her eyes flicked from face to face. This man who fought like shadow and killed like thunder, she didn't belong here. Her heart was still racing. She could not stop shaking. Nothing in her life had prepared her for this. No voice, no power, no escape. She didn't cry, but her eyes told the story of fear, of questions, of a life that was slipping further and further away from anything normal. The car pushed deeper into the dense forest. Darkness wrapped around them like a thick blanket. The only sound came from the night, the distant cries of nocturnal birds and the eerie howls of wolves. The atmosphere was haunting, as if the trees themselves were disappearing secrets from a forgotten time. Eventually, the car came to a halt. In front of them stood a mansion, regal and majestic, glowing faintly under the moonlight. It looked like a palace lost in time, hidden away from the world. It was almost unreal, standing so pristine in the middle of such a wilderness. The car doors opened. They all stepped out. As they entered the mansion, a line of guards and servants stood in perfect formation, heads bowed in silence. No one dared to speak without permission. Jungkook's voice broke the silence. "Jungkook, take her to the room." One of the maids stepped forward and gently escorted mine away. After the long and violent escape, they were all exhausted. The other walked toward the main living room. Jimin collapsed onto a couch. "Jimin, you made a life-changing decision and didn't bother telling anyone." V dropped beside him, crumbling. "V, seriously, I was sleeping. You dragged me out of bed and told me to get dressed like it was an emergency." Jimin added. "Jimin, same here. I was in my room and someone poured water on me just to wake me up." Jin smirked. "Jin, I was dead asleep. Then suddenly, after all these years, I get a call from him. The last time I heard from Jungkook was before Untied. He didn't even bother staying in touch after that." Jimin leaned back. "Jimin, yeah, we are shocked when you contacted us out of the blue." V nodded. "V, to be fair, he doesn't really talk to anyone anymore. Either he is pissed off or shooting someone. No middle ground." Jin chuckled. "Jin, exactly. He doesn't say hello. Just, my mood is off today." Jimin mimicked Jungkook dramatically, pretending to scold and lower his voice. "Jimin, don't mess with me. I'm not in the mood." The three of them laughed loudly, throwing themselves over the couches like kids on summer break, forgetting momentarily that Jungkook was sitting right there, watching them in silence. Then Jungkook spoke, voice low and sharp. "Jungkook, that's enough." His tone instantly sobered them. They froze. Jungkook leaned forward, his face unreadable. "Jungkook, what do we do now? Everything is a mess. The Mafia King's throne is about to be decided in a few days. What if I am not chosen? What if someone blocks me?" Jin shrugged. "Jin, relax. Your father isn't the only deciding hand in that vote. There are others. He can't control it all." Jungkook nodded slowly. "Jungkook, yeah, you are right." Jin gave him a sly look. Jin, now tell me something. Why did you marry her? And don't give me your usual "I had to" nonsense. You are not exactly the marrying type. At that, Jungkook fell silent. Jimin and V glanced at each other, confused. There was something more, but Jungkook stood up abruptly, avoiding their eyes. Jungkook, go, freshen up. It's been a long night. Without another word, he left the room. The three of them stared after him, then grinned knowingly. Jimin smirked. Jimin, has he ever admitted anything in his life ever? We laughed. We never. Jin screwed, stretching. Jin, well, let's wait and watch. I'm dead tired today. I need sleep. The three of them went their separate ways, heading off to their rooms, while in another corner of the mansion a girl who never wanted this marriage sat alone in silence, caught in the storm of someone else's. Meanwhile, one entered the room. A strange feeling crept into her chest, something she could not name. The room was enormous, far larger than anything she had ever lived in. It was beautifully decorated, elegant, yet warm. Every corner sparkled with luxury, every object placed with intention and care. It felt surreal, almost too much. This room alone was bigger than her entire home. A maid appeared beside her. Maid, ma'am, please feel free to freshen up. All the clothes have been arranged for you. Pick whichever you like. Wine gave a silent load. The maid left quietly, closing the door behind her. Now alone, Wine slowly too, in her surroundings. Her eyes moved across the finely arranged furniture, the soft golden lighting, the silk satin that danced with the breeze. But none of it touched her heart. Her mind was lost elsewhere. Her mother, where was she? Was she still alive? Had they? The thought made her chest tighten painfully, her eyes filled with tears. With trembling steps, one walked into the bathroom. The warm lighting hit the mirror, and there she saw herself. She barely recognized the reflection. The silent, broken girl in the mirror was wearing the face of someone who no longer knew what tomorrow held. Slowly she began to undress and stepped under the running water. It poured over her skin, but it could not wash away the heaviness in her chest. The silence echoed around her like thunder. Minutes passed. One emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel. As she walked out, she noticed another door. Curious, she approached it and opened it gently, revealing a massive walk-in closet. Her eyes widened. There were rows of beautiful gowns, traditional and modern, all in her size, colors she never wore, style she never imagined herself in. She quietly picked a soft pastel dress and slipped it on. The fabric hugged her gently. She sat on the edge of the bed. Her heart was racing. She didn't know what was going to happen. Every sound, every whisper of wind outside made her flinch. The surrounding jungle, the unfamiliar air, the eerie silence, everything made her feel even more alone. And then she heard footsteps. They were getting closer. Her throat tightened. She felt a chill run down her spine. The door cracked open. Jungkook entered the room. A fear rose in Wine's chest, and her heartbeat increased, and the night grew even longer.